Alright, so in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to bring the magic rock that we made inside of ZBrush and Substance Painter into the Unreal Engine and how to set it to glow. So I'm back in 3ds Max, and here is my block. If I go to Substance Painter, here's my block, right? I have my materials on it. I have my mask that I painted. So I'm just going to right click on the mask and say export mask to file. I'm going to specify my block folder, and there it is, and I can give it a name. So I say block underscore E, and the E stands for emissive, and that's all going to make sense in a couple minutes. But I'm just going to select PNG and hit save. And now I just want to go File, Export Textures, and I'm going to specify that same block location, select folder. I'm going to export these out as Unreal 4 assets. All right, slowly going through generating them. I'm going to click OK. All right, so I don't need Substance Painter anymore. I can go back to 3ds Max, and inside the Material Editor, here inside the Material Editor, I'm going to bring over a standard material and assign that. And if I go to my bitmap, desktop, block, I want to bring in the base color. I'm going to take my base color here and just plug that into diffuse. Right click and say show realistic material in viewport. There it is. And if I wanted to bring in my emissive, I could do that. Inside here, I would plug it into self-elimination. Now, the way this works is inside of 3ds Max, it just means that it doesn't get shadowed. It doesn't really glow inside 3ds Max. If I come into standard lights, place an Omni inside the scene behind it, and I set my lighting to, well, there you go. It's already dark. So see, the light is here. Those aren't lit. I come around. So basically inside 3ds Max, it's very lackluster. But that's okay. This isn't really the important part. So I'm going to go ahead and put a second edit poly on here. And I'm going to do File, Export Selected. And in my block folder, I'm going to go assign block magic and say save. I want my smoothing groups turned on. I'm going to click OK. And there we go. So now the next step is for us to go ahead and launch the Unreal Editor. So I'm going to pause while we do that. So Unreal is in the process of loading. Here I have my textures from Substance. I'm going to hit F2 to go into rename. And I want to rename it so it's just block underscore BC to simplify the name. I'll just copy that. And I'm going to redo the normal, so BC or block underscore N. And then this guy here, I'm going to do the same thing and change it to AORM, which is ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic. I already have my emissive here. So now we can come in, and I'm going to go to my Unreal Project browser. I'm not seeing, I'm looking for Spring 19. That was the name of my ACC project. So I'm going to click and open that. And so now that project is going to go ahead and load up. I'm just going to kind of click here where my block is and say copy, all right? Because I want to be able to just easily, quickly load that up. Okay, so you may remember I went through and I set up this project. I'm going to go up to Content and add a new folder. I'm going to call this block, and I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to say import. I'm going to navigate to my block folder, and I can actually, I'll show you that you can actually select all of your textures and your FBX file and open them all at once. And so it's going to go ahead and load my textures. When it gets to the mesh, it stops. I make sure auto generate collisions off, turn off generate light maps, collapse this back down, and make sure import materials and textures is off. I just say import. Okay, so inside my folder, there's my block mesh. I'm just going to float the tab down so I could see it. I need to open up my packed material here, and I'm going to turn off sRGB and save that. Close it, and then inside here I'm just going to new material. I'm going to call it M underscore block E for emissive. Let's just double click to open that up. Alright, so same thing, same drill as we've been doing before. We're going to bring in our ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic. Because it's a packed texture, we're going to do the red goes to ambient occlusion, the green goes to roughness, and I plugged it into the wrong one, so I just right click and say break link, and then I go plug it into roughness, and then the blue goes to metallic. I'll bring in my base color, and I assign that as well. That comes in. I can click in here and orbit around to see where the green little bits of green are. I can come over here and pull in my normal. Remember, the normal is another one where the entire texture gets plugged in, right? Meaning all three channels get plugged in. The white refers to an alpha channel if you have a texture that has an alpha channel. So you can see it's already looking interesting on here. If you hold L and click and drag in this window, it'll change the direction of the lighting so you can kind of see how your texture is working. All right, so the next step is we want to make this texture glow. So let's go ahead. I'm going to separate these a little bit because I want to be able to bring my emissive in and plug it in right here. So if I take my emissive and just drag this black over, you see that area is just going to glow white. And so I'm going to get a little bit creative here, and I'm actually going to right click and say new. I'm going to right click and I'm going to start typing in multiply, and because I want to add a multiply node. So I'm going to take that white, plug it in here. If I click on the little arrow, it'll show me the texture once I plug in my second one, which is I want to plug in. There we go. So if I plug this in to emissive, you're going to see only the green is glowing. Now, it's not glowing by much. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a second node. I'm going to click and drag on both these to kind of move them more to the side so I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to right click and add another multiply. I want to take this and plug it in. Right, so now it's getting plugged in. And now I'm going to right click and add a constant 3 vector. Okay, so this is a little multiplier we add. I'm going to plug that into B, and then this whole thing gets plugged into emissive. All right, now if I want this to glow, like really glow, here's my constant. I can click on the arrow, and I can type in a value for red of 15. Now you can see it's starting to glow. And I can go through and I can make this whole thing really glow. But that's a little, but let's take it up to like 75. So it may not be glowing too much here. Oh, there we go. That's a glow. I'm going to hit save on that. If I come to my block object, I can select it. There it is. Let's select the material here. And we're just going to plug that in. And if we just go around to the other side, we could see there's our glowing material on it. So I can hit save. Now, if you want, you'll notice that the one of the navigation options here, one of the display options for a material is a teapot. If you have a explicit map, meaning a texture that's meant from one object, such as this block is, you can select that mesh and click on the teapot, and then you'll see the materials assigned to that specific mesh. It's kind of painful navigating in here though, so I don't know if that's necessarily something you want to do, but that gives you the option. You can come in here now and work to adjust. If you want to make this thing be glowing a little bit more blue than anything else, or if you want to adjust the values, you can certainly work to tweak them. So I'm going to hit save, close this, close the other one, and then I'm just going to take my magic block and drag it into the scene. As soon as I hit play, I can run around my magic block and we see that it's glowing. So I can increase that intensity If I want, I can come in, go back into the material, go to that emissive channel, crank up the blue to like 150. And I can always just set this back to the sphere, or even just to the cube. So let's hit save. There we go. So now inside here we have our block, and if we move it over, move it around, position it anywhere we want in the world, we can hit rotate to rotate it. We can even go into scale. If we grab the handle, we can scale it up. Now when we hit play, we can run around our glowing rock that we made. Right. If you want to make it so that it's collidable, you just open up the block. There's an option collision, and you can say auto convex collision, and it brings up the options here to auto generate the collision. You just say apply, and now if we set it to wireframe, you can see the green collision mesh that it automatically made for it. So we'll just turn off wireframe and hit save. So now when I hit play, I'm blocked by the rock. And you can see how it's shining on my character. All right. So that's the process of bringing in a texture that has a little bit of a glow on it. All right. So we'll just hit save all to save all those, and then we'll save our scene as well. And that's the process of going through and creating a giant glowing rock.